Since before I could remember, my siblings and I spent every spring break at Grandma's house. Even as a broke college student, I scrounged up the money for plane tickets so I could spend the week with Grandma. I came to her house as soon as possible when Grandma died. Between assisting with funeral arrangements and talking with relatives on the phone, I spent my time looking at photo albums and reminiscing on my time with Grandma. She was nice to everyone and lived a good 70 years. The heart attack was sudden, and I knew I could have saved her had I been there. I sat in the garden at the forest edge amid blooming flowers and colorful foliage. Bees buzzed between flower beds, and hummingbirds flitted amongst honeysuckle. A softly glowing dandelion yellow creature, with a body of tentacles, like a sea anemone, floated into the garden from the woods. It settled atop a rose, as big as a pigeon, yet seemingly weightless. "Watch out for the Fae," Grandma would whisper to my siblings when we were kids. Even in my college years, Grandma would have insisted everyone left the garden. I knew from a young age not to touch the creatures or go into the woods. Everyone seemed to fear the woods instinctively. Whenever someone brought up the Fae or the woods, Grandma would stand up and glance around while changing the subject. After a while, I learned not to bring the subject up. Mom knew about as much as I did. Whenever I asked her, she said the subject made Grandma uncomfortable, and she learned not to bring it up. I had always been curious about the Fae, and nothing bad could have come from watching them. More Fae flowed out from the woods, each glowing with their own faint flower-colored light. They moved around the garden, like fish swimming through water. As the Fae played, I felt the tension leave my body. I looked up and saw the starry night sky. Had it really been that long? I got up and carefully avoided touching any Fae as I walked back home. To bed. I ate breakfast in the garden the next morning. Faint pastel diffused from behind the trees. The Fae were harmless enough yesterday. How bad could a little exploring be? I walked into the woods. The foliage was navigable, with clear pathways between shrubbery and trees. The Fae emerged from hiding. Their glow brightened the deep forest. Pale stones twisted from the ground, like towers from a forgotten land. As I walked farther and farther into the forest, the flower-colored pastel lights of the forest grew more intense. Tree bark became desaturated, not quite bubblegum pink, and leaves became creamy blue-green. The Fae danced around me as their tentacles pulsated to an imagined song. My mind drifted into calm nostalgia. Grandma lay with eyes closed and chest rising and falling. I stumbled through my trance, the Fae's tint clinging to my mind. I fought. Visions and sweet flavors lulled through me. Fae floated at me. "She's up!" My sister stood over me. A heartbeat monitor beeped. My family rushed into the room. When they calmed down, my family explained that I had been found laying at the forest edge after a sudden heart attack. I was lucky that my sister visited when she did, after several weeks of me not answering the phone. Grandma was found at the forest edge when she died, as was Grandpa 20 years earlier. Food tasted like flavorless goo after my incident. Art was colorless and bland. Movies, TV, and literature never came close to the enchanting memories. I didn't trust myself to be alone in that house, and always made sure one of my relatives stayed in the same room as me. The Fae beckoned me, teasing their fantasy. I moved to England after the funeral. None of my relatives questioned me. In fact, I think they understood on some level. I received an invitation to my sister's wedding yesterday, at Grandma's old house. I want to go. I always planned to go to my sister's wedding,